does it mean to be a man? Not in strength or status, but in presence. What does it mean to protect, not possess? To truly see women not as objects, not as strangers, but as human beings deserving of safety, love, and respect. In today's episode of 34O, we'll talk about empathy, accountability, and how men can step into a new kind of strength, one built on care, not control. And we'll talk about healing, both personal and collective, and what happens when men begin to see the world through the lens of compassion. And today I'm joined by Daryl, the founder of She's My Daughter, a global movement that invites men to see women not as others, but as daughters, sisters, and partners, each one someone's child. Because when a man says, "She's my daughter," something shifts. Responsibility replaces indifference. Empathy replaces dominance. And love, the grounded, protective kind, begins to grow. So in this conversation, we'll explore how this movement began, why empathy is foundation of true masculinity, and how men can start showing up for themselves and for the women in their lives. Daryl, welcome. I am honored to have you here.
Henrik, I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much.
So you want to tell me a bit more about yourself? And I'm really inspired. I want to really understand what inspired you to start She's My Daughter. What was the turning point that made this more than just an idea for you?
So a bit about myself. I live here in the United States, Washington, D.C., born and raised here, and I've been married for 36 years, 2 wonderful grown children, and 5 grandchildren. And
you are blessed. You are blessed.
Absolutely. And everybody lives here in the area, so it's this great opportunity to get to see them all the time and just to share life with them. So I started She's My Daughter about 17 years ago. And initially I was a youth advocate, just helping young people grow up and develop to be the best versions of themselves. And I did a lot of work in the community and churches and community centers. And I had a seminar called If You Didn't Know, Now You Know. And in that seminar, what we were doing was helping parents understand some of the potential dangers and challenges in the media and what they should look out for as it pertains to making wise media choices. And in doing my research, I found out how much dishonor, how much violence, how much misogyny there was directed towards women. And it got to the place where it felt like it was just second nature in our societies. And so I knew that if I spoke up and stood up as a man, that I could certainly do something about it to make sure the lives of all women are honored and valued in the current day, but also in the future as well, so that one day we can live in a world where women can move about without fear of violence. And so that's how She's My Daughter started. There have been several very, very close women in my life who have suffered violence, different types of violence at the hands of men. I've seen their lives and how it's progressed, and the pain and the agony and the stress and the fear that really comes out of that place of being violated and being dishonored. And oftentimes it'll create this sort of PTSD in their lives. And they have all kinds of triggers which they deal with on a daily basis just because someone wanted to assert their control, just because someone wanted to have a few minutes of pleasure. These women have a lifetime of pain.
So how has this shaped your understanding of how men see and treat women?
Well, for me, the way we see women, the way we interact with women, it could be one of 2 ways: in honor and respect. But it also could be in ways of objectification, could be ways of pornography, could be ways of just dishonoring them completely. And we see that replete through our society. And so it really starts with our individual relationships, right? How do we speak to them? How do we show up for them? How do we encourage them? How do we admire them, not just for their bodies, which we're prone to do, but how do we honor their intellect and their value to society? And so my desire is to encourage is a better word, a generation of men who honor and value women at the highest level.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful where you're putting it and what you're setting out to do. So how do you feel the project has evolved since you first began? And is there anything that has surprised you during the way?
It is involved, I think, evolved in the sense that I hear stories after stories after story of women who have gone through tragedy, whether it be human trafficking, whether it be domestic violence or sexual assault and rape. And they share with us on the website. Many times at events, I'll talk to them and they'll be very forefront about the pain that they have gone through and also the pain they continue to go through. And when you hear those stories, Henrik, it changes your mind, it changes your heart, it enrages or brings about this passion to make sure that we can change society so my daughter, your daughter, all daughters can have a better place to live in.
Yeah.
I think about the horrors of human trafficking, and I've seen several movies and seen several shows, and I've talked to several women who've been trafficked and the horrors that they go through. Many of them started getting trafficked at maybe 6, 7, 8 years old. We have about a 5% chance of them getting recovered. These girls are servicing 7, 8, 9 men nightly, every night, over and over and over again. And when you hear those stories, when you internalize them, something internally shifts and it compels me to do something, but also to help corral others to do something as well.
Yeah. And she's my daughter is such a powerful phrase. What do you want people, especially men, to feel when they hear it?
I want them to think about their own daughters and the life that they want for their own daughter. Imagine that, right? I want my daughter to have loving relationships. I want my daughter to be honored. I want her to do well in the marketplace. I want her to do well as a mother, even, and that's what I want for my own daughter now. Most men have children, many have daughters, but all of us have mothers and nieces, maybe, and sisters, all those women in our lives that we want the absolute best for. And we would, without question, without hesitation, stand up for them wherever they were getting violated to make sure that the violator knew this is not going to happen again. We would do whatever it took to make sure that happens. What if we made sure we did that for all of our brothers, daughters,
Yeah.
all of our fellow men? Make sure that happened. We could change the society because I believe with my whole heart, society is able to change whatever it wants to change. We've come to the end of some diseases. We've come to the end of some tragic situations when we put our mind and our focus in that place. And so I want everybody to think about the precious women in their lives, how they want them to be treated, and then take that same treatment and treat every woman the same way.
It's such a beautiful message, Daryl. That is, I mean, as a, as well, I have a daughter, and I want nothing else than the best for her, and that she's treated as a peer and with respect by her partner, right? And it's such a beautiful message.
Absolutely. There's something about the relationship with our children and that we don't have to work at it, right? It's just automatic. My daughter can probably ask me for anything at any time, give me that look, and it is absolutely done. Got me wrapped around her finger. Love her so much. And really, the relationship doesn't not have to be worked on. Marriages have to be worked on, right? Work relationships have to be worked on. But there's something about that connection, especially between a father and daughter, that they can almost do anything in the world and we still would have a passionate love for them.
That's for me is almost that's the only place I know where you have almost an unconditional love by default as a man, right?
Absolutely unconditional love, unconditional love. And so, man, if we could transfer that just the way we treat her, the same way we want her to be treated, we did that to every other woman, we could change society.
I mean, that's how you change the world, I think, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I live here in D.C. and in a decent neighborhood, nice neighborhood in Washington, D.C. I could go outside at 2:30 in the morning, Henrik, and not think twice about it. My wife, my daughter, they have to think about going out at 12 in the afternoon, right? Being alone in a parking garage somewhere because there are so many people around who might do them harm. And so we want that to change. And I'm excited to have that change in our society. I know we can if we put our concerted effort to it.
Yeah, and I think that's a sad thing as a father. I mean, I know my daughter actually trained even MMA fighting and Thai boxing just as a
Wow.
way of actually getting into it made me actually feel more safe thinking about her being alone, right? And which is a sad thing, in the other in the other way, right?
It's a very sad situation that we're in, but we have to take those
Yeah,
steps. One of the things we have is She's My Daughter is martial arts classes.
yeah.
And we have a professional that helps us out on a regular basis. He teaches these classes just so women can know how to protect themselves. And so sad reality, but a necessary one.
I agree. I mean, what I know from my daughter, for example, is that she knows how it feels to have an adult man on top of her and still get out of that situation, right? And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
but it's sad at that point that we have to get to that point, right?
Absolutely. It's sad. It's sad.
So, how does this simple shift in perspective change the way men think about respect, empathy, and boundaries? Do you think? If we think about She's My Daughter.
Yeah. I take this thought process now
Yeah.
as I look at any woman or as I come in contact with any lady or have conversations with her, I actually say, what if this were my daughter?
Yeah.
How would I show up in her life? How would I show up in conversation with her? How would I show up in interacting with her? How would I stand up for her in the workplace, right?
Yeah.
How would I make sure she has the things that she needs in a platonic way, completely platonic, but in a way that values her? And I think that shift right there, if every man took that mindset, oh, we could change everything. We could change our workplaces, right? Our neighborhoods, our communities. The world will be a better place in some years here to come. And I'm excited about that because every man, if he makes that shift you're talking about, Henrik,
Mm.
um, he can be a hero. We all want to be a hero some way. And we think it takes some grandiose plan. We got to be Superman and be somebody in Marvel or DC Comics to make that happen. No, just show up in powerful ways in your daughter's life, right? Show up in powerful ways to the women who are around you. Make that mind shift. And when you make that shift, people will notice.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do. We want to follow that plan.
So, I it's a beautiful vision, and I think I do wish men really, a lot of men start embarking on that journey and getting in that mindset.
Absolutely. One of the things that we are pursuing getting into is to connect with influencers, connect with sports teams, even on the professional level,
Yeah.
because so many people look at them and look up to them, right? And if they were the ones who began to take a stand and post about these things, right, and encourage men to do those things as we watch those games, as we watch them interact and watch their messaging, right? Then that can make a huge difference right there. So that's one of the things we have in our 5-year vision and plan is to connect with those major teams and then see a huge shift in all of those who come and watch them play and watch them interact and follow what they do, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way. And I hope also this podcast will help you get more global visibility on that as well. So doing what we can.
Absolutely.
So in your view, what is the biggest misunderstanding men still have about masculinity and care?
I think when we think about masculinity, one of the words that has come to our minds over the last many, many years is this idea of dominance, right? Or this idea that this is my property and this is my possession. And if we think like that, then we can do whatever we want to do, right? If I own a pickup truck, that's my pickup truck. I'll do with whatever I want. I'll drive it where I want to drive it. I'll treat it however I want to treat it. Maybe I'll clean it. Maybe I won't, right? This
Yep.
is my possession, right? But we have to be retrained in that if that's something that we learn to the extent that we understand women aren't our possessions at all, right? They're precious gifts to us, right? We're precious gifts to them. And if we think like that, then that changes the whole perspective of how we interact right there. And again, going back to our name, I want every man that comes in contact with my daughter to treat her as a precious gift, one that they've been endowed with in just any type of relationship.
Mm.
And I believe that will, of course, bring joy to my heart. So I've got to give that to every woman who I come in contact with.
Yeah, and I think if you think about how if we actually lead with love in that sense and give love, even more love will come back.
We were created to have this reciprocal relationship, right?
Yeah.
I find myself in the Christian faith as I'm a Christian, and every religious organization talks about this idea of whatever you want to come back to you, right?
Yeah.
Give that out. We know that as human beings, right? We will reap whatever we sow. And so let's sow seeds of kindness, seeds of love, seeds of support, right?
Yeah.
And without a doubt, that's going to come back to us.
It's so true. And I think masculinity, as we talked about here as well, I think is, and we also spoke about it a bit before, you and I, is more like a lot of men see dominance and control as masculinity, whilst being, for example, vulnerable, showing vulnerability is seen, and men are being taught that that's a weakness, whereas that is probably one of the biggest strengths in my mind, right?
It is the biggest strength right there. One of the challenges, Henrik, in terms of understanding men and how we help them and nurture them to the best parts of masculinity is in the approach that we have towards them, right? And there have been buzzwords that have come out in the last several years, toxic masculinity, and we understand what that means. But one of the things we have to be careful about as we have our male audience is how we approach them in ways that they will begin to listen, because there'll be certain buzzwords that the society has embraced. And as soon as you use those words, right, even though those of us who understand what they're saying will cooperate with the communication, but sometimes you use those buzzwords and people are completely thrown off and you lose your audience at once. And so we get a lot of women who call us or who volunteer with us. And when they know what our messaging is, they'll say, yeah, Daryl, you're doing the right thing. Go get them, right? And I'm like, yes, we will go get them. But we have to do it in a strategic way, right? So we get their attention and we get their ear. And anytime we lead with our name, our title, she's my daughter, men click into that. They understand.
I can understand that because
they understand right there, and they are completely engaged. If you say something that's positive and uplifting to their daughter, they take notice, right?
Yep.
But I dare you to say something that's disrespectful and dishonoring and violent to their daughter, they take notice of that as well. So our name has been really, really helpful in us engaging men in terms of their relationship with women.
Yeah, and I see that too, because I think if we start talking much more about this toxic side of things versus more like healthy way, in one way it would be, it alienates more than it actually unites, in my mind.
Yeah, it does. And so we just got to be careful, because at the end of the day, we want to get to the result that we want.
Yeah.
No violence against women. Whatever way we've got to get there, we've got to get it. So sometimes we've got to make sure our language is in a way that uplifts men, right? Say, hey, you're strong, you're powerful, you can be a part of the change, right? And not just, downplaying or being disrespectful to who they are as men. And so when we get their attention, change has happened. And Henrik, I have seen change happen in our seminars and our workshops. We do various exercises to really light up the fire in men to say, hey, I want a different world for my daughter. And I know to do that, I've got to make the world different for all daughters.
It's beautiful, Daryl. It's really beautiful. So what role do you believe men play in breaking cycles of violence, objectification, or emotional distance with women?
I think men, number one, have to have standards within their own selves, right? Say, this is the type of conversation, communication I will engage in with women. I will never go below this standard, right?
Yeah.
That's number one internally. Number two, it is helping encourage those in your sphere of influence to do the same, right? We have this peer pressure that has been created in our societies, right? Where we have a few bad characters or characters who might not have gotten nurtured well, and they carry out disrespect and violence towards women, right? We have those characters in our society, and all too often, people will follow them, right? If they have a voice and they have a following, this guy must be right in how we should treat women, right? They're just our possessions, and we dominate over them. But what if we change that right there, right? We have men of prominence saying, listen, hey, this is how we treat women. This is the standard right here, the same standard you want for your own daughter. That's how men can show up and make a huge difference in their homes, in their communities, in their world.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And you often talk about accountability, but also about healing. So how do we invite men to heal without shaming them?
I think, shame is such a huge part of who we are, right? And we all carry it in various ways. One of the ways that we work with that is encourage every man that they can be a hero, right, in their own homes, in their communities, and that they have the strength and power to make a real significant change in how women are treated. And so this whole idea of making that change just causes me to look inward, right, to be healed myself, to understand what it might have gone on negatively in my life. How was I taught? How was I raised, right? What did I read? What did I watch, right? What was I allowed to do even as a young child that affected my mindset and how I treat women right there? And so a lot of the times it's about looking inward, right? There are books to read. Sometimes we got to get help, right? Got to get help by some professionals to say, I need to re-engineer my thinking, right? And dismiss or jettison what I've learned before and embrace something totally new and positive, because the end result is a better world for those women in my life, and women all around the globe will receive that same benefit as well.
Yeah, it's a beautiful message. And I think it starts with self-awareness, and then you have like self-love in one way. And when you have that, you can start building from that.
Absolutely. It starts with that. Another thing is this whole idea of changing our algorithm, right? Our algorithm of what we notice in our world, what is regular in our world, who we hanging out with, right? Who we're listening to. So in our regular physical world, but also sometimes it's about changing that algorithm literally on our social networks, right?
Yeah.
If we look at our Discover page, right, or the pages that the algorithm feeds us on TikTok or wherever we are, it's based on the stuff that we want. Is that something that is honoring towards women in our lives? Is it? We've got to go through that process. If you would say that it's worth it for my daughter to have a better world and not to be objectified, right? Let me begin to start with my own stuff first, right? And lovingly encourage my brothers to do the same.
I agree on that. And I mean, for me personally, that's why I'm doing this podcast, for example, is to spread a different light on this topic. So I'm a big supporter of what you do on the journey.
I appreciate that. Well, you have a great aura about you, Henrik. There's something peaceful and positive about that, man. It just natural. I remember when we first connected. So yeah. I appreciate what you're doing, man. There's this whole idea of how do we affect relationships, man. That's watch them work. Yeah. That's what it's about, man. And step by step, one by one, we're changing the landscape. And I appreciate you for your part in that.
Thank you. So many men feel really disconnected or defensive when conversations about gender come up. And how do you think we can reach them with empathy instead of blame? Because that's sort of also what we touched on a little bit here, but just going a bit deeper on that, right?
Absolutely. So the whole idea is being very cognizant of the words we use, right? And the phrases that we use. I encourage everybody to dismantle any thoughts of using buzzwords in conversation. When I'm speaking to men, I'm speaking to them man to man, just about real issues, right? And trying to really get from them what their vision of the best society is, right? Not imposing mine on them, but saying, and all of us would agree that we want places where everybody's valued, because we want to be valued. We want everybody to be honored, right, and respected, because that's what we want. And so when you speak to men like that, you pull out their visions and say, hey, maybe this is a possibility of how we can get to that particular vision right here. Then we can make change because they feel as a valuable part of the process.
So when it comes to fathers and daughters, there's a lot of fathers actually listening to this podcast, and I do see that with all the statistics. The vast majority, this is interesting, this is a podcast for emotions and intimacy between men and women. And I can tell you that we have about 60% of the men listening are men. And they're all 35 plus in the vast majority. So it's really nice to see that actually men seem to care and they want to learn more about it. And I see this as a great opportunity. So what would you say to fathers listening, how they can raise sons and daughters who understand equality, respect, and emotional presence?
First of all, be the example everywhere you go. Every time you open your mouth to somebody, make sure it's about lifting that person up, right? And even if you have to constructively criticize someone, do it in a way that's really surrounded by love. So we have to model that behavior first. And also we have to study what it takes to make societies of equality, right? Or societies where everyone's valued, everyone's honored. So, I encourage men to, pick up some books, right? Take some classes, do what you do what you need to do to really understand what that society could look like and what would be our part in playing in that great society, if you will. I think we can do it. I think that if we put that concerted effort into it, man, we can make a real change. It's going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
But it's going to be worth it, right? And one day on your dying days, right? Your daughter can look you in her eyes, your niece, right? Your people who know you and love you can look at you and say, you did well. You did well. You helped in your way, big or small, make this society better and more equitable for all those who are in your sphere of influence.
Nice.
I'm always fascinated by stories of triumph, tragedies to triumph. And one of my favorite movies was Schindler's List, actually. And just love to see how this man took his resources and said, I'm going to help some people.
Yeah.
And always intrigued by the end of his story at the end of the movie when he was running away from all of the oppressors. And he knew that his life was going to be gone because he was a member of the Nazi Party. And he got out of his car, all those he saved surrounded him. But he began to weep profusely, and he said, look at this watch I've got. He said, I could have saved several more people with this watch. Look at this car. I didn't need this. I could have helped several more people. And so there are stories like that throughout history where people, say, I could have done more. And so I would take that story and stories like that and encourage people to do whatever you can so that when your days are done, you can say, I did all I can to make a better world.
Yeah, that's a very, very strong message. So in your own life, how has fatherhood and mentorship shaped the way you see women and men relate to each other?
There's so many significant times with my daughter that I've had, and I'm grateful, so grateful, Henrik, to have a good relationship with her. As a matter of fact, after this, we're going out to breakfast here. And it has sensitized me and softened my heart as I see her and how as I want her to be treated and as I want other people to treat her as well. And so I think it's certainly made me a more sensitive person because I do believe that what you put out in the world, you will get back, right? And I want to put out love and honor and respect for all women the same way that I want it to be for my daughter. I remember she tricked me. I'll use the word trick loosely here into going to college in San Francisco. She was studying fashion and she got out of high school. And we thought, okay, well, New York, right? That's 3 hours. She'll go to New York City. That's the hub of all fashion, right, in the world. But she found out about this college open house they were having here in D.C. It was for a college in San Francisco. And I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for you to go 4,000 miles away. But she said, Dad, listen, I just want to go check school out. That's all. Henrik, that day I found myself signing some papers for her to go to San Francisco, and she was there for several years. But the thing was, I never forget when I dropped her off. I was like, oh my God, how are men going to treat her, interact with her?
Yeah.
Will it be one of honor and respect? And that really struck me. And so that was a real big thing to fuel my whole progress with She's My Daughter, because that's how I want all women to be treated, and they deserve to be treated that way.
It's a very, very impressive story. So with that, how do you think we can teach boys that strength and tenderness can coexist? Because I think that's something that a lot of guys they don't think they can coexist. That's sort of, you have to be cool, you have to be cold, so to speaking.
Yeah. So a gentleman wrote a book that I read about 20 years ago, and it had the perfect title to answer your question. It was called Tender Warrior, right? So there is that part in us that we have a warrior spirit. I believe it, right? We're have this level of courage and this level of um, strength within us, right? That we need to have. It needs to have boundaries and borders around it, right? And we need to know how to control it. There is that part of us. But when we are dealing with human beings, right, we also need to have that tender side as well. And again, we connected with our relationship with our daughters. As you talk about boys, I do a lot of speaking to male groups, and especially the young boys as well. I've been a part of, sports teams, coaching, and just speaking to youth organizations. And if you speak to young men, they understand that tender side. They understand what it means to have a daughter one day, right? And they know how special that a relationship will be, right? They understand that even when they don't have a daughter. And so it's about encouraging them in groups if we have that opportunity. But here's the most important place: to do it when we're one-on-one with boys, whether it's our son or other boys as well. Sometimes we can get into this pack mentality, right? Where we're in this group, right? And sometimes the worst can come out of us, right? Because the pack is doing it, right? Or we'll say certain things or bring out that bravado just because the pack is doing it. But I've always found unequivocally that if you talk to them one-on-one, right, they understand exactly what it takes to create a situation where they're honoring and valuing women, right? And so if we can do it on that singular basis, right, and have that spread like a disease in the best possible way, that's when changes start to happen in these small communities, right? That's when change starts to happen, and it grows and builds from there.
So they can be strong also to resist the peer pressure that they might experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Teach them that, right? And we all do that with our children, right? To teach them how to resist negative peer pressure, right? And the beautiful thing is when even young people, right, even elementary age or teenagers, right, not only have those boundaries for themselves where they can say no, but then when they can stand up for other people, even in their young age, that's a beautiful thing right there, right? Because other people are seeing that strength and that fortitude, and they say, hey, man, even though I might not admit it, that's what I want to be like right there. I see what he does. I see how he values humans. I want to be just like that right there.
So I agree on that 100%. And what if, when we look at society and change in society, what are the most important conversations that still need to happen, you believe, between men and also among men for the real change to take place?
Yeah. So I believe that the most important conversations are those ones that say we treat everybody the way we want to be treated, right? So the golden rule right there, that works in society. You will get back what you give out. And if we can recognize that and always be about consistently giving out the best things, that will come back to us. And I will also say this to men as well. There are a couple of characters, and we see them all the time on social media, right? Who are espousing that women are our property, right? And maybe indeed they have done some things, and now it's our time, right? We need to assert ourselves and our strength and our dominance, and just have them as subservient to us. That is not the way. If you spread that out into the world, your significant women in your life are going to reap the benefits. And I know you do not want them to reap the benefits of that ideology. And the only way we change is to spread the other messages of positivity, hope, and encouragement and freedom in the lives of women.
So, I mean, we touched a bit on how you want to leverage certain methods to reach out with the message of "She's my daughter." So, what type of other initiatives do you see, like either with podcasts, schools, communities, social media, to reach the younger generations?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that to make a change in how women are treated, we have to connect with men first. That's number one. But also, we know that this thing is so big, it's going to go well beyond our lifetime.
Yeah.
So we take in special energy and attention to connect with Gen Z. Gen Z is a very interesting generation, and they are probably the most socially conscious that I've ever seen in my whole life. And so they go after social issues with an intensity that really impresses me. And so we
and passion.
Oh, passion, intense passion, absolutely. So one of the things we do, which we're really excited about, is we said, what are the things that Gen Z is interested in? And of course, they're interested in pop culture and music and fashion, just on a general level. And so what we said, we want to create a clothing line. The clothing line is called All Be Free. And the idea is that we get graphics from Gen Z artists around the globe, take those graphics, which are about hope, empowerment, and freedom, put those on streetwear, right? And so we'll be selling those here this year. They drop in the next month, absolutely. And these, again, speak about hope, empowerment, and freedom. People will buy the clothes because they look and feel good, but also because of the messaging behind them, which is that the proceeds go towards helping women who are in safe houses and shelters, recovering from their atrocities, but also helping programs that help embolden and enliven the self-esteem of young girls. Because the more their self-esteem is heightened, the less likely they are to fall prey to predators, often online. So we're really excited about that. We've got a lot of young people around the globe, Gen Z artists who have submitted drawings already. We've got a nationwide, not even a nationwide, actually a worldwide contest where they can tap in and present designs, and their designs will go on our clothing. But also at the same time, the money that we give out won't just be in our area, in our region, but wherever that artist is, we are going to have them get in connection with those places, those safe houses and shelters in their area, those programs that are helping young girls' self-esteem in their area, so we can see change happen around the globe. And we know Gen Z is so vocal, intense, and passionate about these issues that they will make this thing fly. It'll be bigger, Henrik, than any other fashion brand around the globe. You'll see it in all the stores, but for great purposes.
That's a beautiful message, Daryl. I'd love to see how we can actually help push that out as well even more.
I will let you know we have our first drop, which is on November 25th, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women.
Oh, wow.
So that's when we'll be dropping our first line. We're really excited. We've got some of the clothes ready. We've got some models, some Gen Z models who are helping us, and some brand ambassadors. And so we'll let you know. As a matter of fact, Henrik, we'll send you out a shirt, man, or a hat.
I would love that.
Absolutely, man. I know you're in line with our thinking and our thought process about this movement.
Perfect. So if you could speak directly to a man who feels lost or angry today, what would you tell him?
Within you is a tender, gentle warrior. Within you is a hero. You might have made some mistakes in life. You might have gotten estranged even from your own daughter. But as long as you have breath in your lungs, as long as you have a mind that wants to do better, you can make small steps to do better, be better. Start in your own homes. Start with yourself. Build out from there to your communities. Be determined to make a difference in your sphere of influence. You can change the life of not only your daughters, but also daughters who are in connection with you. Take stands. Be strong. Stand up for women in the workplace, in the communities. make them feel valued, make them feel honored. I want to say this to all the fathers out there: be the best, most connected father that you can be. If you're a good father, be determined to be the best father. If you've been estranged from your daughter, and we see how that can happen for any number of reasons, do everything that you can to make a reconnection with your daughter. We're here to help you out with that. We've got a whole plan of how fathers can absolutely reconnect with your daughters. Sometimes you might be in a place, in a situation where you aren't able to speak to them, but let's use all modes of conversation. If you can text them, right? If you can write a letter to them, do whatever you need to do on a regular basis, because what ends up happening is this: when the estrangement happens, shame can take place, right? Guilt happens. And then we feel that. And then time comes in and it's hard to make that reconnection. But I want to tell you, dads, your daughters need you. Your daughters love you. They want to hear from you, even though they don't always act like it. They want to hear from you. So do everything you can. Good fathers, be the best. Fathers who've been estranged, do everything you can to make a reconnection with your daughter.
It's a very, very beautiful message, Daryl.
Yeah.
So with that, leading on from that, what does love mean to you, Daryl, in its most real human form?
Love in its most real human form is giving without expecting anything in return. Often we get caught up in situations that someone has done something to us, right? And we turn off this faucet of love. Oh, they don't deserve it anymore. And then resentment takes place, right? And that not only might hurt the other person, but it hurts us as well as we hold on to that resentment. But if we would be people who said, I'm going to give out the best of who I am to everyone that I come in contact with without expecting anything in return, that's love.
It's a very beautiful message, Daryl.
Yeah.
So, if the world truly understood the message of She's My Daughter, what kind of change in the world do you think we would see?
Women moving about without fear of violence. Henrik, you and I can think about diseases that have happened in our lifetimes. I might be a few minutes older than you, but we can think about diseases that were things of our youth, maybe polio, other things that we have vaccines for. We might see those things appear every now and again, but we took the time, we took the attention, we put the resources towards those particular issues, and now they're things of our distant past.
Yeah.
If we took the same time, the same energy, the same resources and enthusiasm against violence against women, we could change the world in short order. I was talking to a group of prep school students recently, and we had the opportunity in the States to maybe have the Olympics come to LA. And so the Olympic Committee was coming to visit LA, and the mayor for the prior month's time cleaned up the whole city, right? Even the worst places of the city were spotless on the ground, it would seem, right? He moved all kinds of encampments around, right? He made the city so pristine just so these people could come and get a positive impression of that. And I asked those young people, I said, if we wanted to change the landscape as it pertains to violence against women, could we do the same thing, put our time, intention, efforts into that and make a difference? Unequivocally, those smart young people knew that the answer was yes, we could. And that's what I want to see for our world.
Yeah, and it just starts with making the choice, right?
That's all right there. Doesn't even cost money to say a kind, encouraging word to somebody, to lift someone up. Doesn't cost anything.
So finally, Daryl, what gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope right now is that I've seen change take place. I've seen men want to do and begin to do different things. I see men say, I know exactly how I want my daughter to be treated. And that's exactly how I'm going to treat other women. And what ends up happening, Henrik, it becomes this contagion, right?
Yeah.
Men see it individually, right? Men's groups see it collectively, right? And we want to take that fire, that energy, that passion, and make it happen to all women or all men as they interact with women. And so that's what inspires me. That's what encourages me. That's what's giving me hope. I know we can do it because I've seen it happen already.
It's such a beautiful message, Daryl. I'm hoping this podcast will also help you a step on the way, on the journey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining here today.
Thank you so much for having me. If we can, Henrik, change the mind of one person, man, with this work, we've done a great deal. And I know we've changed many more. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. What Daryl reminds us is that true masculinity has nothing to prove. It has everything to protect. That empathy is not weakness. It's strength with a purpose. And that when men begin to see women through the lens of humanity, as daughters, sisters, mothers, the world becomes safer, softer, and more whole. Because the greatest revolution in masculinity isn't louder, it's quieter, and it starts inside, in how we see, how we listen, and how we love. If this episode moved you, please share it. Talk about it with your friends, your sons, your fathers, because awareness spreads when we speak. Thank you for listening to 34O. Until next time, stay present, stay open, and stay human.